Hello, widowhood. Our guest today is Miss Joy Brooks. She is a 2-year widow and has a wonderful perspective that I know that you will find insightful, empowering, and also encouraging. Let's get into the conversation now.
Many people talk about the ups and downs of married life, but no one really prepares you for life after your spouse passes away. Welcome to Widowhood Real Talk with Tina, a safe place for widows, widowers, and their friends and family to talk about love and loss. Find comfort as you listen to honest conversations between Tina and invited guests who've experienced the loss of their forever partner. Share their stories of love, grief, and healing. You are not alone in this journey. Join today's episode and discover a wealth of resources and learn how to connect with others who are traveling the same path. This is Widowhood Real Talk with Tina.
Well, happy Saturday morning to you, Joy Brooks.
Happy Saturday morning. I'm just thankful that it's not flooding this morning.
Ooh, and Joy, welcome to the widowhood. So I'll say this: she's been part of the widowhood, just part of our widowhood conversation. So we'll get into that. Flooding, like, what is that about?
It's called living on the South Shore of Long Island.
Oh,
Get used
okay.
to it over time. It's not a good thing, but could be worse.
Now, right now, I was looking at just different places in the weather. Like Ohio is getting spanked by the snow, and a lot of other places. What is your weather like in New York?
Right now it's foggy, and
Okay.
we had a rain and windstorm last night. It wasn't as bad as what was it, Tuesday or Wednesday when we did have flooding.
Oh,
Yeah. And it's not in the house or anything like that. It could be, but it was about an inch in the garage. So
okay. That's so. What? So, how long have you lived in this area, and what's the most
well, it's 25 years.
25 years in the same location, same address?
Mhm.
And what's your worst flooding experience?
Superstorm Sandy.
And how did that impact you?
5 feet in the street, 3 feet in the house.
Like past the garage, like into your
Like
home.
a swimming pool in the house.
Wow. What
Yeah.
was that
I lost
experience?
everything. We lost everything. The next
Oh,
day, you rip everything out, you throw it out, and everybody down the block has the same thing. So everybody's stuff is out in the front, and the Red Cross trucks drive by and they feed us. And it's martial law.
hold on. Okay, there's a lot right there.
Yeah, yeah, that's packed. That's packed with stuff.
So, what is the frequency in which you've endured such a
Well,
diff?
that was what they called the 100-year flood. So it
Okay.
shouldn't happen like that. Hurricanes, yes. Because Long Island is prone to what is called a nor'easter, where it comes up the coast of the United States, it circles around and it spanks us because on the south shore of Long Island, it goes around, it pushes the water up, and we get a high tide. So a perfect storm, which was Superstorm Sandy, which was a hurricane, a full moon, and a nor'easter.
Oh, that is a lot.
A hurricane's not bad enough. It was a nor'easter hurricane, the way it came up and circled around. So that was the perfect storm. And we get flooded. So there are times when I walk the dogs and it's an adventure because, not going down this street. Oh, not going down that street. Turn around. Got to walk on this person's lawn. Sorry. And it's something that we live with. Personally, if we get down to a personal level, we shouldn't be living on the South Shore, but the house is here. And one of my husband's dying wishes was, and move out of the house, move away from Lindenhurst. And I like it here. The summers are beautiful. The neighbors are lovely. They know me, I know them. I've been living here for 20 years. So if I were not to come out of my house for 2 or 3 days, they'd be knocking or phoning or texting. And
Mm,
that's important. Yeah, I could move to some other place. odds are something else would be an issue. So it's a trade-off. And we don't, the weather, the weather on Long Island in the summer, it's lovely. In the fall, it's lovely. In the winter, it's iffy, it's dicey. In August, we get hurricanes. New York gets hurricanes. The East Coast gets hurricanes.
And
So
and and you dived right into what was going to be my question. Yes, you spoke about the devastation, but why stay? And you're right, everywhere in the world has some level of extreme weather that you experience, but you cannot outdo those relationships that have been built, that have been cemented over time, people that care for you, people that would notice if something was awry in your life. And I can understand those outweighing, because you have to pick which extreme weather situation you're going to live in. And you have found one that is worth being there for. So when your neighbors listen to the podcast, they know how important they are and how valuable. If you've never been mushy mushy, they let them know
yeah, let
they
them.
mean, yeah, they mean a lot.
There's services, there's shopping, there's doctors, there's lawyers, there's a whole amount of services that for the past 20 years, 25 years, I've been part of. And I'd have to start that all over again. I'd find a new doctor, find a new dentist, find a new accountant. I'm
I'm
just,
exhausted hearing that, so we're just gonna move
yeah,
right on.
and that, I mean, you could pick anybody, you could shop at
Yes,
any store that you want, but when I walk into my supermarket, there are a few people that recognize me and that I talk with, and
right.
it's a thing.
Yes, and that's and you mentioned your husband. Please share your late husband's name.
So his name is Harry.
Okay.
Um, since he passed, he's become a saint. So, and
Oh,
he'd laugh at that because he was no saint, but I've turned him into a saint, Saint Harry. He could do no wrong. Funny, that's very funny. He's definitely laughing.
so let's and I think you mentioned him, so I wanted to be sure to articulate his name, but I want to spin the time clock back.
Mhm.
Uh, and you can pick any time where you want to pick up your story and share about who you are and yourself before Harry, and what that looked like, and then come forward into who he is and everything.
So, how did I meet Harry? When Joy met
No,
Harry.
no, no. Before Joy and Harry. Like, I want
Yeah,
you
but
to.
let's start this
Okay.
because it's kind of funny. So
Okay.
when Joy met Harry, because the story, when Sally met Harry.
I know about to say. I was just going to say that. Okay. I see where you're
So
going.
when Joy
Okay.
met Harry, I was working for NBC at the time, and I was living at an apartment over somebody's house, and the landlady um, had become my friend. So I was about to travel to Spain for the 1992 Summer Olympics. I was working at NBC, and I was going to be going to Spain for work and be there for over a month. So it was the summer before August, and I just got my paycheck for the money allocated before I was going. And my landlady friend said to me, "Let's go out." And I never went out. Never. I'd given up dating. I was 37-ish. I'd given up dating. I had given up. I was like, I'm probably just going to become, an old maid. I can live like that. It's okay. So she said, "Let's go out." And I said, "No." And she said, "Come on." I always say no. She said, "Come on." I said, "Okay." So we went out. We went to a local bar, the place you're not supposed to meet anybody. And I was at the bar. And I unfortunately, at that point in my life, liked to drink a lot. So I was doing shots of tequila and celebrating. And I made a joke with the bartender. And from the other side of the bar, there was a man who laughed at the joke. And I said, "Bartender, buy that man a drink." That man was Harry Brooks, my my husband. So we talked and got to know each other. We started dating right before I left. And that was the beginning of the next chapter of my life. And he didn't necessarily believe that I had been celibate. He thought that was funny. I thought it was not too funny, but funny that he thought that I was, I don't know. He just didn't believe that I had given up. Next, let's say 2 years of my life was the beginning, was yet another chapter of odd things that happened. Usually you don't say when somebody says, what has your life been like? And I'm like, biblical. And they're like, why do you say that? I'm like, flood, famine, death. That's been my life. I've had them all. Fire. So I met my husband. We started dating. Within 3 years, we were engaged. Mom and dad were snowbirds. And they would go to Florida every year after Thanksgiving. And on the way down to Florida, they stopped to see my sister in South Carolina, and they would celebrate Christmas down there. So after Thanksgiving, they'd stay with my sister, then they'd go to Florida. They'd stay there until March. My mother's birthday was March 1st, and they'd usually come back March around that time. So that was their winter. So it was a winter. I packed them up. I argued with my mother. Mom was 75, dad was 80. And I was like, why are you going down? Why don't you stay? I was getting married in February. I'm getting married in February. Why don't you just stay? And they're like, no, we'll be back. Don't worry. You'll get married. The plan was eloping. I was what, 40 years old? Hello, I'm not having a big wedding. So, we were eloping, and she said, when I come back, we're going to have a big party in the summer. Don't worry. I got it. She said, I got it covered. So I said, okay, So they packed up, they went down there. I got married February 25th, 1995. March 10th, my mother passed away in Florida. April 14th, my father passed away in New York. In June, my husband fell at work and had a back injury that took him out from work. So the honeymoon was over before it started, and reality set in. And it was that type of a relationship. But fortunately, or not, I don't know, I'm 40 years old. I've been through a lot of stuff. Not that anybody wants to go through 2 deaths and an accident, but I have a certain amount of fortitude. And what I was learning was that strength was my superpower, and endurance, and rising from the ashes and being reborn, and all of these things. Those things are my superpower. And I was married to Harry for 25 years. Well, it would have been 25 years. I was married to Harry for 20 years. And over that time, he suffered from the back injury. I was the breadwinner. We moved to Washington State, where it rains all the time. And he would tell me every morning, it's raining out. I'd be like, no, no, no. There's a sunburst right there. Look, the sun's coming out, and then it would start raining again. In any case, we came back from Washington State. We moved back to New York. He got himself a job. We started another chapter where things were not so tight. Wasn't so stressed. I wasn't worrying about every little thing. And it went like that for about 10 years, 10 years of being able to set things in motion for another chapter of my life, personally, my life at work. And then he got cancer. But oddly enough, all of these things were setting me up to be the strongest, best person I could ever possibly be. So had I not met him, the 20-year trajectory would have been completely different. Well, I can't even imagine. I think to myself, well, maybe I would have moved back with my parents because maybe mom would have gotten sick at home and I would have, anything could have happened. I don't know. And none of us do know. And um, sometimes we can look at all of the bad things that happened. Mom died, dad died. It was terrible. It was very stressful. 9/11, I had a nervous breakdown, and my husband went fishing. Um, so all of these things that happen to us can weigh us down or weigh us down and uplift us in some odd way.
And I agree with you. Um, I'm making the leap that the cancer is what actually ended Harry's life.
Possibly. He ended up dying of a heart attack.
Okay.
It
And
was
pro
COVID, and whatever this whatever this means to anybody, and I don't know what it means because my husband was in chemotherapy. He for 2 years. They thought that they licked the cancer. He was in remission, but because of the type of cancer he had, they wanted to put him in immunotherapy. So he was 6 month on, a month off, 6 month on. He was during that month of off when it was during COVID. He didn't get COVID. We were very careful, but he did get the vaccine. And after the second vaccine, he was complaining that he wasn't feeling well. And it was 3 days after the second vaccine that he passed away with a heart attack. However, the coroner said, um, because there was going to be an autopsy, and I insisted on knowing what happened. And he had cancer in his pancreas, in his stomach, in his liver, and his lungs. So he was not in remission.
mm,
The state of affairs during COVID were such that it was uh, I could not be his advocate as I had been before. I couldn't go to the doctor with him. I couldn't tell the doctor, he has these odd symptoms. Are you aware of these odd symptoms? I don't know what he was saying to the doctor because I wasn't there.
and thank you for sharing that. And I know this is something you may share on a regular, but there's still a price to share that story and to because what you're giving us, there's so many memories and so many other pieces going through your mind as you share that part of it.
Yeah.
Thank you for being willing to do that. I want to talk about a few things that you covered. One that you just mentioned, and I think this is extremely helpful for people that when we are not doing well, the power of having someone else in that room to ask questions, to be involved, and to do that. And it sounds as if over the life of your relationship, you were able to fill that role and be that empowerment in there. But
And
at
I did
this,
that for my folks as well. I did that for my folks as well.
but at the same time, knowing that you did the best that you could do, and not to apply guilt to
Oh, no, no,
yourself.
there's always guilt. It's always guilt. Always. I don't know. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. I should have done this. I should have done this earlier. I should have done it more.
But could you really?
I had to come to terms with that, but I still do
So I
walk
should say
around the
this:
house.
you wrestle with the guilt, but
Yeah,
no, but knowing
absolutely.
that, but at the end of the day, knowing you did do the best that you could do.
There were lots of things that I learned. There were many times where I lost my patience. There were
Yes.
many times that I was um, mm, short with him. And I have realized that I was going through the cancer with him and I was impacted. I was stressed. I am not perfect. And
Yes.
so the things that I might have done, and I do regret, I had to I had to get them out of, get them off my chest. If, if he's going to sit down and tell me, okay, I'm going to die and I'm giving up, am I supposed to say, oh, okay, honey, just give up. That's good. No, of course I'm supposed to say, no, you're not, and yell at him. You have to be a survivor. Did in the long run, should I have been kinder? How in the world do you kindly handle that situation?
I don't think that's possible. I think the relationships and the dynamics of who you are is the way you show up to inspire the person you love, is the way at the bottom, at the end of the line, we wish that they didn't die.
What?
We wish that there was one thing that I could have done that could have changed these events. There's something I could have maybe said, something I could have maybe done, a conversation I could have had with a doctor or a physician. Maybe there was one other thing I could research and do that I could have made this different.
Right. And you can't.
That right there.
Can't. No. I mean, it's not that it's predetermined. It's just that if if you're doing the best, and you have to say, I did the best I can. And I mean, there are evil people out there. I'm not talking about evil people. I'm talking about everyday husband, wives, mothers, children, grandmothers, daughters, whatever the relationship is. We're not saints. The joke that I've turned my husband into a saint. We are not saints. And even though I had gone through the death of my mother, gone through the death of my father, gone through the death of my brother-in-law, his brother, and then it was his turn. That doesn't mean, oh, now I'm an expert on this. This was my husband. The rest were different family members, and it was different each time. And I hadn't really learned anything except everything comes to an end. And there's this sinking feeling that I get when I realize that, whatever it is, if I look at my pet now and I'm thinking, oh, she's getting old at some point, I'm going to have to come to terms with this. That's what happens to me. And that's the beginning of the grieving period. So I was grieving with Harry the moment he was diagnosed with cancer. I was grieving his death the moment he was diagnosed with cancer. And so the last moment when the car, when they put him in the bag and rolled him, out of the house, I had already been grieving 2.5 years.
But there was still more yet grieving to do. I want to circle back to something you just mentioned, the different people in your life that have died.
Yeah.
And if it's possible, and you mentioned something I think that is very important. You thought that you understood what grief looked like from the passing of your mom, the death of your dad, the death of your brother-in-law. But then Harry dies.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, and I'm not wanting to get into this conversation about this death is more important or more hurtful than this death, but because sometimes people try to get into that conversation, well, this is probably the worst loss, or they all have their different spaces because the relationships are different.
Mm-hmm.
If it's possible to discuss how those different deaths have impacted you in correlation to what Harry's relationship.
So we don't, as humans, we don't expect to live a long life with our parents. So there's no expectation that they'll be with us through the end. None. Right? So when they go, it doesn't at least impact some expectation. There may be, oh, I thought, she would be there for my wedding. I thought she would be, whatever, obviously. I mean, when parents leave and you're very young, it's different. But the expectation is that your parents are not going to outlive you or be there at the end of your life. So when my mother went, it was a surprise because my father called and said, Mom's gone. And he was in Florida when he said that. And I said, and I had been home from my honeymoon 1 week. 1 week. I was back at work. It was the beginning of being back at work. And I got the phone call and my father said, Mommy's gone. And I'm like, well, where'd she go? And I should have realized, and I did, quickly, I put it together. Dad never calls me. Dad never calls me at work and mommy's gone. So what does that mean? So I'm sure that there was a point that I realized that while I was still asking stupid questions. And that was a shocker, right? When we brought my dad back and we buried my mom, and my dad was 80, and we took dad to the doctor to find out how he was. The doctor said, and I'm quoting, "It's going to get worse." And I'm like, "Oh, really? How worse could this get?" He was in the hospital for a month, and he passed away in the hospital. My dad was a diabetic, and his foot had gone necrotic. So I was quickly putting the pieces together of what hell my mother was going through in Florida. She had had a heart attack. She just had a massive coronary and just died. Literally woke up. I don't feel well. Bam, done, gone. So dad's now in the hospital for a month, and now we're dealing with, or I was dealing with my sister getting all the finances put together. So that death was the most stressful thing I've ever gone through in my life, ever. Whereby my sister, who's older than I am, not from New York at this point, she lives in South Carolina. I've got to get a house that I don't own, that is not in my name, cars, money, assets, everything. I've got to get in order because the doctor's telling me this is only going to get worse. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's not coming out, Joy. And I'm like, oh, but my sister didn't hear that. So now also on top of all of these things, I'm sort of dealing with my sister who's dealing with the grief just like I am in a completely different way. Now, I have to deal with a new husband, the grief of my mother, the grief of my father, setting everything up, dealing with my sister. I mean, can you imagine how much stress? There's just so much stress. And in my mind, yet again, my mother's death was a surprise. After that point, there was no death ever again that was a surprise. So dad's death, I'm dealing with in a month basis, where the moment the doctor said this is only going to get worse, I'm beginning the grief process. Going, okay, when it happens, it's, and a month or so later, the phone rings early in the morning. I pick it up. It's the doctor, and he said, that your dad passed last night. So I'm like, relieved, instant grief. I'm relieved. How dare you? How could you feel you're such a selfish, cold, and I still go through that because, again, strength is my superpower. It's not that I don't feel things, because to this day, I go to bed at night and I say, night, Mom, night, Dad, night, Harry, every night. And I say it without even thinking it, because the first word that comes to my mind when I go to bed is mommy. And I'm not kidding. And I laugh when I think that. I'm like, am I like demented? Is this normal? But I'm thinking, no, I'm sort of taking stock in my emotions as soon as I hit the pillow.
And that's
And
important because so many times we try to gloss it over. Hence why I'm having these conversations, because there are so many people in this place where they feel like, should I still be doing this? But what that looks like for you to keep your mental wellness and be honest with yourself, that these people, we don't live our entire lives with these people and then unravel them so quickly. I mean, your mom is a person, your dad, the people you've known your entire life. It's not the funeral happens and you just go on as if they never existed and we don't say their names. That part is what mutes people. That is what is so thick in their throat that they can hardly feel like they can utter their name and say it out loud without somebody being uncomfortable because you said their name or mentioned like they're dead, that's over there. That is ever present. That
ever.
is a part of who you are. And that is empowering for someone else to hear in this conversation that their mom, their dad, their sibling, their spouse, their cousin that had such great value in their life is no longer breathing. It doesn't mean that their connection to them has ended. That has not been severed, but the way we connect with them has changed. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's I do think what would mom have done? I do think, oh, mom would have said this, and sometimes it would have been humorous, and I laugh. And that's exactly why Harry has become a saint, because anytime anything falls apart in the house now, the other day, the I walked into the kitchen and there was water all over the floor, and I'm like, okay, okay, Harry, what's going on now? And I look under the sink, and the pipe is has become dislocated, disjointed. And I'm like, okay, thanks, Saint Harry. What am I supposed to do? And I'm like, okay, yeah, you did tell me to move, but exactly what would have that have done? Just because I moved, I would have had a handyman, which, by the way, thank you very much, Harry, I do have. And so handyman comes over and fixes it. And he made a joke about, he doesn't know Harry, but he made a Harry joke as well because he knows that how I referred to Saint Harry. So it's I remember I rehash, and is it obsessive? No. Do I rehash? Yes. Do I obsess over I shoulda, coulda, woulda? No. Occasionally I do it. I do go to the very tip of the rabbit hole. I look down and I'm like, I'm not going down there. And I walk back because I think that's not the point. I don't think Harry would want me to be obsessive over this. I think he would want me to go on. I think he would want me to remember what he said, learn the things he did, and go on. Here's another story. Um, he said to me, he said, move, and I didn't. And I told him I wasn't moving. But he said, make sure you get another car when I'm gone. You need another car because and he said, lease it, don't buy it. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. So I leased a car, and one of the idiot lights went on, and I'm thinking, oh great, now what I do? Saint Harry. And he said, this is what you do: play a video, find out what it is, play another video, learn how to open the hood of the car, do all these things. And I'm like, okay, I could do this. I could do this. So I played a few videos, and I realized that it was the idiot light was for or I realized it was for the water, just my regular water, my windshield wiper water. So I went out and I bought the Rain-X, and I open the hood, and I open I find the little thing, I open it up, I put the Rain-X in, and the Rain-X is pink, but the fluid in there is orange, and I'm pouring it in, and at some point I'm like, what, Harry? No? Uh-oh. and I and I look, and I'm like, what, Harry? You're calling me every name in the book? Well, if you were here, you would be doing it, thank. So it turns out that I thought it was the brake fluid, and I really panicked. And I went and watched a video about brake fluid, and it was like, it's like danger, danger, Will Robinson. And I was like, oh my God. So I prepared myself for the car getting towed and flushed. I put it into the radiator, which
I,
that's not that much of a big deal. However, what did I do? I went into the garage. He had a lot of tube, tubing maybe that big. Had a lot of tubes. So it was like a big straw, big human, big giant straw. I put it into the um receptacle, and I started a siphon out.
yeah.
And because it was heavy, it was
Oh
literally
yeah, you need to flush the radiator. Yeah, that was a
I,
good call. Yes.
I siphoned it out. And, I placed the call, and the guys came and they said, don't worry, it's not the brake. You're good. You should probably, just bring it in and have them flush everything out. So it was okay. But the point being is that not only did I have a full conversation with my husband, he didn't, I'm not going to go into woo-woo land where he told me what to do, but I experienced his style of figuring stuff out. What he would have done had he been there, he would have never put it in the wrong place anyway, because my husband was a mechanic. But in any case, I did the best I could from being with him.
And so hold on. There's a few things I want to talk about there, and thank you. One, I'm no, it's not the woo-woo thing, but we've lived this life with this other person. And because of 25 years of living life with Harry, you would know in this situation, ideally, he would have said this and you would have done that. He's not here, but he is a part of who you are. Being with Harry, as you said, is a part of why you are Joy Brooks. Being with Harry taught you how to put on that super cape and understand what your strengths were. But we need that part of their voice in their reasoning. And one of the things that I talk to people about when they're dealing when I'm doing grief coaching, you know, I miss them and I want to tell them this. We are used to giving that to them. You can still do that. You can do that by saying it out loud. You can do it by writing in a journal. What Something wonderful happens in life, and the first thing we want to do is pick up a phone or wait till we see them or text them, and we can't, and then we're left undone. The
Mhm.
ability to say, okay, here, what would Harry have done in
Mhm.
this process empowered you to pull from that Harry knowledge that Joy didn't have.
That's right.
And also, you something else you mentioned, there is so much stress when we are now trying to maintain a household that other person did all this stuff. I remember the first time after Mark died, and I looked in the backyard, and we lived on a 1.25 acre lot, and I looked at all those leaves. And I looked out the window and I could see Mark raking those leaves. And I was like, I'm going to have to rake the leaves because they just can't stay out there. And I put on my coat, I go out there with the leaves, and I'm in the backyard. I raked a very minor pile and just started crying. I
Mhm.
was like, raking leaves is not a big ordeal, but that was Mark's job to do. And now I have to do the Tina stuff, and I'm having to do the Mark stuff, and I'm trying to stay sane. I think I dropped the rake in the yard and just came back in the house and finished crying because I had stayed out there doing it for so long. And eventually, a friend called and said, "Is there anything I can do for you?" I was like, "Yeah, I need you to rake all the leaves, like the whole yard." And they were like, they thought it was a minor task. They were like, I mean, rake leaves? But when it's that thing your spouse does, there's another level of strength and energy you have to pull from. The little thing underneath the sink, this, that, learning how to do the car, we do those through tears. We do that through anxiety and stress, but we do it. And I think it's those little steps of continually doing it helps us not to be stuck in that place. We get a little bit more strength, a little bit more capability, understanding our capacity to keep going. And I just want people that are listening to this conversation to know it's hard, but you can do it
Yeah.
little by little.
One of the important things that I learned was how to reach out for help.
Yes.
So being proud and saying, I could do this myself. Okay, that's wonderful for us, I mean, for a certain amount of time. So I did that helping Harry. And I did that because he would not have accepted anybody else helping him in any case, right? So I did that for Harry. I'll do this for you, honey. I could do this myself. But the first year he was gone, I mowed the lawn, I raked the leaves, I did everything. And at the end of the summer, I was like, what am I doing? I can't do this. I don't want to do this. I thought I want to do it, but it's a lot and it becomes too much. And now I'm hating whatever it is, as opposed to, oh, you know what? I'll go out and rake the leaves. It'll be good exercise. So when it snows, um, the neighbors come around in any case. So when it snows a lot here, the neighbors come around. So, and they've always done that. Harry would be there and they would come here. So neighbors come around. But when it starts to snow, I enjoy shoveling. I've always enjoyed shoveling. I don't have that much property, but it's not so much mowing the lawn, it's just the upkeep of the mower. It's like it needs gas. Oh, it won't start. Oh, I've got to pull it. Oh, should I get an electric? Oh, I need a cord. Oh, I'm like, you know what? All of that, why don't you just pay somebody and they can come and they can do it? And I fought it for a while, and I said for a summer, and I thought, no, 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 no. There are going to be times when I'm going to need help. So, if the friends that you had that were your good time friends, and you had your husband to deal with all the, or what, the good and the bad. Sometimes now the friends need to help you with the bad times. So if
And
you're not feeling well, where your husband would take care of you, now you've got to call a friend and say, I'm not feeling well, and can you help? Can you take me to the hospital? And you've got to come up with a plan. If you're going to stay single, and I'm still single, and it's not that I'm not looking for a relationship or that I am looking for a relationship. I'm just trying to take care of myself. I'm doing a day by day thing here. Whatever happens, happens. But one of the plans is what happens if I get sick? Who's going to take care of me? Who's going to care? And my neighbor calls me and my girlfriend calls me. And that's the plan. I call her when she's sick, and I call my neighbor when she's sick. So we all make sure that we're in touch and that nothing, they'll come knocking. Do you need soup? Do you need me to shop for you? What do you need? Tell me. And that's very important. You've got to, well, if you're going to give to another, if you're going to get married, you're going to give to that person again. Totally. You're going to have another relationship. If you're not going to get involved, not going to have another relationship like that, you're going to need to find good friends.
and community is so important. Thank you for sharing that. That oftentimes you and I have both seen this when people are grieving, it's easy to become isolated. It's easy to turn inward. It's easy to uh, feel as if your safe haven is cutting yourself off from other people. In those communities, if you're the person that it may be the first time losing a spouse, you do have to educate people sometimes. You do have to articulate and let them know you don't want to be alone. You have to tell them, I need to talk about Harry, my spouse. And those friends are friends. It's just that they don't know what you need or how to show up. And we do have to guide them, and isolating yourself and removing community from your life is another loss. And it's a loss that's very difficult to pull ourselves out of. So it's wonderful to have what that community looks like, because the inevitable is going to happen. Things are going to break around the house. Get a handyman. You're going to get sick. We're going to get a cold or do something. Line up a friend to be able to do that. Having all those things takes some of the sting out of this new life that we're learning to live. The first time it happens may be, oh, I need to do this. But if you're listening to this conversation, you get to say, oh, that's something I need to put on my to do list. I didn't think about that. Maybe I need to re engage with my friends and restart my community.
Mhm.
Maybe I need to have different friends. Maybe I need to have friends of other people that are widows or widowers, because they understand some of the things that I feel like I can't talk to maybe my different friends. Maybe I need to look at what happens when I don't feel well. Stump a toe, do something, because I don't get what I had before, but
Right.
I do get to make a plan about what I'm going to do now. One of the things that you spoke about, and I want to circle back, we've kind of jumped. You talked about how the death of your mom and your dad impacted you. If you would share the difference of what that looked like in the death of Harry.
Well, I'm glad you said that because I was thinking. So here it is. You don't expect your parents to outlive you, and you do expect them to pass. You don't want to think or expect that your marriage is going to end in any way. Obviously, it's going to, but you don't get married and plan that. You plan everything else. You plan your retirement to a T, but you might not plan the next step. So, um, you may write a will. Okay, you may decide trusts, you may decide to purchase, you may say, I want to be buried here or I want to be cremated. So you may do those things. But when you get close to that, so when you're young, I mean, you're 40 years old, it's like, oh, that, blah, 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 that's never going to happen. Then you retire, and there's something that happens in your, I don't know, I'd say somewhere in your 60s. I suppose when you start thinking about retirement, it's also when you start thinking, retirement? And what happens after retirement? So you start putting things in order, and Harry's loss came before retirement for us. So we had no plans other than all through our married life, Harry said, if anything ever happens to me, I want to be cremated. So I knew that. I knew that. And I said, there's a plot that my parents bought. There's one for me. That's where I'm going. So he knew essentially. So I knew that I would cremate him, but other than that, it literally opened the book and it's blank. It's like the last page and Harry died, the next page, the next page. There's nothing there. Oh my God, what? And I had no idea. I was quite honestly got laid off a month later. So I was in a job where I was working and saying to myself, something's wrong with this job. This is not right. Something's not right. And when I got laid off the month later, I wasn't surprised, but I thought, okay, so now I don't have a husband and I don't have a job.
Mhm.
Okay, so what do I do? And I went into semi panic mode, but that's when the superpower came over. And I thought, you know what? You're really going to have to really, do stuff that you've never done before. Either you're going to give up or you're going to, you know, go into the telephone booth and take your glasses off and rip out that cape. And I was like, I guess it's cape time, And I didn't do anything miraculous other than I kept saying to myself, okay, what's the solution? Do this. Okay, what's the next solution? Okay, do that. What should I do here? Okay, do this. And I just kept, I created my own 12-step program where every time there was a problem, I solved it. Instead of saying, what am I gonna do? Oh my God, oh, I should have, I would have. Maybe I thought to myself, no, well, what am I not gonna do? Well, right now, I'm not going to leave the house. So I'm not going to put this house up for sale. It could have been a solution. I could have said, I'm just going to sell the house, and the money that I have from the house, I don't have to worry about a job, whatever. But I thought to myself, I don't think that's going to solve the problem because now I'm going to be without a house, without memories, without a job, in a whole new neighborhood. Oh my gosh, I'm going to present myself with a whole other bunch of unknowns. So stick with the knowns, and I looked for part-time work. And a month later, I was able to get a full-time job. And the full-time job was a 2-year contract. It was a contract that lasted 2 years. And it was a little miracle. It was a little miracle. It saved me. It was full-time. I worked from home. It was full-time. So I filled my day with work, solving problems. I got a nice paycheck. And I started getting myself together. And I thought, so what I'm going to do is do a yearly, what's up? And if I feel at any point in time, it's time to leave, it's time to leave. I'm going to need to do 6-month, 12-month plans, business plans for myself now. I'm going to have to do them alone. Um, it's not that I'm not looking or that I am looking. I'm merely taking it 6 months at a time, making sure my bills are paid, making sure I'm healthy, making sure I've got friends. I do a few things. Um, and it's sort of like taking it, it's like, as I said, I'm on a 12-month program, 12-step program. Take it a day at a time. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but I know that I'm managing as much as I can. Something, something my friend says to me often is, why don't you take a vacation? Why don't you go somewhere? If you didn't have the dogs, where would you go? And I keep thinking to myself, I do a lot of things, but I don't want to do any of them alone. And I'm not just going to drag a friend with me to do them, because what's the purpose in that? If you're going to go on a vacation, you want to have the nicest time. You want to be able to relax. You want to feel comfortable. You don't want to feel stressed. What's the point in spending the money and feeling like you're going to places for the other person that you don't want to go, or you're compromising, or, whatever? I'm like, you know what? I'm not ready to travel yet. And that's the answer. I'm not ready to travel. Am I looking for someone, something, some special um, package? Yes, that's what I'm looking for. You know, if it lands, if I see it, if somebody, if the opportunity comes, the perfect vacation for me right now is like getting into an RV with the dogs and going through New York. Is it going to happen? Probably not. But I sort of look for that type of vacation on the internet, like an RV, Airbnb type of a thing, where I could drive up, stay in. It's not an RV. It's not it's not mobile. It's planted. But I look for something like that. Um, the next chapter is waiting. Again, there's a point, like I'm 6 pages away to blank pages again.
But
But I'm always 6 pages. It's like I turn the page, I've got 6 new pages. See, I'm constantly running on 6 new pages, but there's a whole bunch of blank pages ahead of me.
but there are also so many pages that you filled since the day that Harry died.
Right.
Two two
Exactly.
things that come to mind. And you spoke about it briefly. I want to give you a little bit more time to talk about it. I've heard people say, I knew they were going to die. I had anticipated, I had thought about these things. And I thought that when they died, I was already done grieving, but I wasn't.
Mm,
That anticipatory death versus how that grief shows up when they actually die. Can
yeah.
you share a little bit more about that from your experience?
I think that I had cried my eyes out before it happened. So when he passed, oh gosh, there was, like I said, there was some amount of peace and relief. One, it's over. He's not in pain anymore. Because what he was going through was far more painful than, I could even imagine. It was his life that was ending. He was leaving me behind. He had guilt. Oh my God, I'm leaving her behind. What is she going to do? No one's going to take care of her. So there was some amount of relief that, okay, you know what? His journey has ended and he's at peace. Okay. So now what about me? So then I did a check on my emotions, and there was fear, guilt, as I said, some amount of relief, and some anger. And I was like, okay, I've got a lot of emotions I got to deal with. Why am I not just hysterically crying? Super, there's my superpower. I think um I wouldn't categorize strength as an emotion, but it was fortitude. I don't know what emotion it could possibly be aligned with, but it was the emotion of stoic resilience, something that said, he has given me X amount of time with him. That was a that was a present. That was a gift. I'm not going to turn this around and turn it into something it's not. Um, the arguments that we had, all the things that went on, yeah, they're still there. They're not worse, they're not better. He's a saint, right? That's the joke. But trust me, I still think back and go, remember the time that? So I'm like, I need to do the right thing for him. I think he would appreciate that. And I think he would also appreciate the fact that I have not fallen apart the seams, because I think he's hoping that I keep going. I don't think that he's the type of man that would think, oh, there she goes. She doesn't even care about me. I don't think that. If I had reached out and got married a week later, I think the wrath of Harry would be there. And I'm not thinking that, matter of fact, he said, and I want you to remarry. And I looked at him and I'm like, what? Honey, let's not even go there. He goes, no, I want you to remarry. And I'm thinking, okay, whatever. Okay, honey, sure. I'm gonna, in any case, I know that he would want me to take care of stuff. So there was some of that. I've got to be strong for Harry. I've got to do the things that he wanted me to do. I've got to, carry on the legacy. And part of that is carrying around the Harry doll, which I mean, he's not here, but he's here with me.
Yes.
And I'm that person that Harry said to me many times, "You're my rock." I don't
Oh,
know what I would have done without you. And he's still saying it. He's still saying, you're doing the right thing. You're taking care of stuff. I'm really proud of you.
that is
And
beautiful to know that.
yeah, and I do choke up now and again at odd things. Um, Harry loved John Wayne, so we would watch John Wayne movies. He loved classic movies, so any classic movie we would watch together. And there are some movies where I can't watch them because I know that it's his favorite movie, and that together we would watch it together. And now I'm on the couch by myself. And so I'll start watching it going, Harry, we're going to watch this together. And I'm like, I can't do this.
And I think it's important to know, and thank you for sharing that. There are some things we'll be able to pull off, but there are some things we're not ready for, and we may never be ready for. But what I hear when Harry died, there were so many blank pages. But when you go back and look at reverse, you learned how to fill those pages with your life. You learned how. The future still has empty pages, but you'll take those as they come. The same process, your 12-step process, and learning how to move, to continue living, to solve problems, to determine, is this problem going to make more problems or is this problem going to make less? And make that hierarchy of decision to be able to do that. And those things right there is what we have to learn as widows or widowers, and anybody else that you're dealing with the death of a loved one. Because if not, we will become frozen about what all I can't do, what all happened, how horrible this was. But at some point, we've got to take that first step.
Mhm.
And one of the things that you and I talk about often is not being stuck in that place where I am no longer functional, where I'm not doing anything, and I only look back and see what I lost versus taking on the present of the gift of having that love in our life. If someone was recently widowed and what you've experienced, what advice, if any, would you give to them?
Well, it's funny, a friend of mine, she wasn't married, but her boyfriend, if I maybe 10 or 15 years, committed suicide.
Mm.
So that in itself is a whole other thing. But um, she posted on Facebook and I connected with her and I said, let me know if you need to talk. And she said, I'm so talked out. I can't. can't even begin to tell you. And so I let her be. And then she posted something along, and this is a friend that I worked with many years ago, and only because of social have I stayed in contact with her. She now lives in Las Vegas. She used to live in Long Island, now lives in Las Vegas. I haven't seen her in a number of years, but we do communicate through Facebook. And I felt a need to just step in to let her know I'm here. I'm sure she has closer friends. I'm sure she has her boyfriend's friends also. They're taking care of her. So I'm not pretending that I'm the expert and that she needs to talk to Dr. Joy. But I said, anything you need to do, anything you need to talk about, I'm a little talked out. She posted something along the lines of, I'm working full time, but I think I need another job. And I'm thinking she needs to fill her mind up. She needs to stay busy. I get that. I was there too. So I sent her a book. I said, here, why don't you read this book? It's about the gig workspace. Maybe you could find a job. Oh, thank you very much. And I'm thinking, I'm hovering over her in the most polite way for her when she needs it, whatever she needs, I'll attempt to give it to her, right? Everybody's different. And if you care from your relationship with them, also the relationship that you share that you lost, there's some amount of grace. By the grace, what is it? By the grace of God go I, right? And
If
that's
not
in
about,
bad
yes.
times. That's in bad times. That's supposed to be in bad times. This is how gracefully I go. That's the point. If I have the chance to help somebody in some way uniquely for them, I'll be there. Another friend of mine. This is actually was a boyfriend that I had many years ago in high school, and his wife died of cancer, and we again through social reconnected. I felt I needed to go to the funeral, right? And I went with another high school friend of mine. We went together. And then just kept in touch now that she's gone. Thought again, I'm hovering. If he needs to talk, I'm here, Then his daughter died,
Mm.
an overdose. And I thought, oh my goodness, how is this guy gonna make it? Right? I learned that he had a girlfriend. He had um begun another relationship, and I thought, this is good, this is healthy, she'll be there to help him, he's not lost, because losing he quite literally lost his family. Imagine that. You're now 70 some odd years old, and your wife is gone, your daughter's gone. Now that family that you raised is gone. There's nothing. The 40 years of your life as a husband and father, gone. So I was like, this guy. So again, I'm hovering. All that I do is once, twice a month, I just send a text, or on Facebook, I say, what do you need? Do you want to do coffee? Whatever. Just hovering. I'm not the one thinking I'm the one he needs. I'm merely saying, if he needs me, I'm here. And I learned that because remember I had mentioned my landlady that took me out that night where I met Harry. Well, that landlady is my closest friend now. She came into my life out of nowhere again when she found out that Harry passed. She phoned me and she said, I'm so sorry. Let's, when you have a chance, let's go for, coffee, whatever. And we just picked up in the relationship that we had when she was my landlady and my friend. And she's one of my closest friends that I reach out to when I don't feel well. And she does the same for me. She's divorced, and so she's been divorced about 20 years now. So she's she's pretty when I called her and I told her about the car incident. She said, "Why didn't you call me? I would have come over and I would have told you how to do it." So, she's sort of like, I joke and I say, um, like you're my next husband. And we joke about it because she sort of is, because she's experienced being alone for at least 10 years longer than 15 years longer than I have.
There's great value in learning from people who have traveled a road that you are now on. There's wisdom. Someone's going to listen to this podcast and go, okay, maybe I'm trying to think of everything in the future where I just need to try to get a solid rhythm in place. Hence
Also,
why I'm having these conversations.
go a little bit back in the past and think about those friends that maybe it's time for you to reach out to, that
Mm.
maybe maybe you ignored a little bit, because when you're married, sometimes, life
Oh, yeah.
much. There's family, sometimes you're lucky and the married relationship allows you to have girlfriends from the past. But in many instances, what happens is once you get married, the relationships you pick up with are those family relationships, or the relationships where the husband, the friend of your husband, he has a wife, and the couples get along. So you build these other relationships that are built around the marriage, that work for the marriage and carry the marriage forward. And those single relationships that you had, they may languish, go to the wayside, because your husband doesn't want you to hang out with the woman that you used to go out on dates with and find guys. He's always thinking, you know. In any case, she came back into my life and was graceful in the way she hovered. And so I learned from her how to do it for others.
Mm. And
So,
someone's going to listen and learn how to hover for other people.
exactly. So it's a very light hover where, it's not a lot of noise where they're going, "What is that? Can she just, you, you're not, you're
You're
not,
not coming in like an Apache and a Chinook. You're
yeah, you're
just
not
there.
knocking on the door and saying, "Here's a casserole," knocking on the door. Here's bacon and eggs, knocking on the, you're not doing that, You're basically just saying, "Want to do coffee?" And the person will like, "No, it's okay." Okay. All right. And you don't get upset. It's not like they're,
That part right there, because thank you. People will say, well, I reached out to them, they didn't reach back. Their spouse died. It may be 2 years. You stay consistent. And when they're ready, they will trust and know that you're there for them.
right.
Don't think, oh, I text them 3 times and they never returned the call. They may have just finally took a shower. They may have finally just left the house. This is the long game. This is not something you text me. The hovering needs to be consistent. And if nothing else, they may never return it, but it meant something for
Right. And
them to get that message.
you don't
Yes.
know how much it meant to them. You may have been a lifeline that, it never occurred to you that they thought, it was so nice of Joy to do that. And they made it through the day. They're not going to
Yes.
call up and say, "Joy, the reason I'm alive today is because they're not going to do that. They're
But
not.
keep doing it. Keep hovering. Keep,
Exactly. So
yes.
I think that's some lesson that I've learned about life in general, where you sort of learn the value of people, and you take that for granted all for most of your life. It takes some amount of tragedy for you to realize the miracle of life. And I would hesitate saying that you could learn that otherwise. Unfortunately, you can't. I think a death, or a very traumatic, tragic, whatever, happenstance makes you realize, "Oh gosh, I'm so lucky to be alive, even though I'm not a millionaire, even though I don't have a great car, even though my job stinks, even though right now I'm alone." All of the things that are driving you down, you may say to yourself, "But you know what? There's another day of opportunity, and I'm going to take one step at a time."
Nice.
No one's expecting you to, you know, be Jeff Bezos tomorrow. And no one's expecting you to be Jeff Bezos, period. Right? Those are very special people. We're not all very special, but we are all special.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, it's we're honestly we're all unique and we're all special. And some of us are incredible, and some of us are just special. Does it take the value away from being special? No.
It
But we're
does
not,
not.
we're not ordinary. None of us are ordinary.
And something, thank you for that. Something else you mentioned briefly is, I hope I said this correctly. You and Harry spoke, and there were two things that you mentioned. One, you knew he wanted to be cremated, and you knew that he had articulated that he wanted you to get remarried. And when I hear those two things, when you're at this place when your spouse dies, you go through this Rolodex in your mind. What did we talk about? What did they want? What did they not want? Because we have an immense desire to honor them, fulfill the wishes in which they articulate. So knowing Harry wanted to be cremated let you know automatically what you need to do when you're at the funeral home. Knowing that he had given permission, articulated that you get remarried, gave you the relief, no guilt, that if I ever decided to be with someone else, I had that gift from Harry, knowing that I'm in a good place. Some people have to reach forward in that and not certain what their spouse would have wanted or not, but yet they know they're living and what their continuation of their story looks like. Are there any other topics that you recommend somebody that's married or coupled or with their partner? You know, you probably should talk about this, this, and this too. It may have been some things you and Harry talked about that you just didn't mention, or things you've learned over time that partners really should talk about this, because when those that moment happens, the inevitable, it's not if, we are all working to be ancestors. So when they are no longer here, it would value you to have talked about these other different things.
Because every relationship is different. Harry and I weren't the type. I mean, Harry was that typical man, where you watch a lot of these comedian women that talk about their husbands that never talk. Harry never talked. He wasn't, he didn't come home from work and we would sit down and say, well, no, he'd come up from work, he'd have a beer, he'd watch TV, he'd go to sleep. And if I got any conversation out of him, it was essentially, let's have sex. That was the conversation. He was that kind of a guy, I mean, really. So we didn't talk a lot, but I knew who I married, right? And I made it a point to know what he wanted, what I wanted, and not be foolish about it and pretend. No, you cannot pretend in a relationship, in a marriage. If you are pretending, I strongly recommend that you look in the mirror and stop pretending. You don't have to have the conversation aloud necessarily at first, but go into the bathroom, shut the door, look in the mirror and say, hello, what's going on? Be honest. And if there are things that need to be discussed, those difficult topics, have them with your mate. If you can't have them with your mate, solve them in some way. You need at least the smallest plan. You need to be aware that at some point, you need that line to pull and to get you out. You're going to need it. And where is it going to be? Where is it going to come from? Is it going to be all you? Is it going to be the smallest amount of you and lots of friends? What is it going to be? And just like I'm saying to myself, I want to travel, but I don't know how I'm going to do it. The plan would be to find the right group to travel with. That's the least amount. That's fine. So having those small that's a luxury to have that conversation. But having some sort of a conversation with your husband, or your family, or your friends along those lines, so there's some established conversation that you can have, that you could say, it's happened, and they know what to do. right? You know what's the next step, that you're not like, I never thought of this. That's not a good place to put yourself in any situation. I mean, think about this. You know, they always say in the cold weather, always make sure you have gloves when you go out, gloves, hat, blanket. You know, you go in your car. I think about these things when I'm getting into the car in the winter. I think, oh, I just go in the car. Wait a minute. I have to make sure that I have a coat if in case I have to walk home, the car breaks down. I'm going to walk home with this. I'm going to freeze to death. Oh, well, I need gloves. I need a hat. And I go through these things and I'm thinking, goodness gracious. But the point is, you plan. What did your mother always say? Make sure your underwear is clean. Why? Why? And the thing is, these are little plans that make sure that you're in, if the worst case scenario happens, you're not stuck in the worst case. You haven't made something bad something worse because you didn't plan. So again, I'm not telling people to make a whole plan, but I am saying, again, go in the bathroom. If you can't have a conversation with anybody, go in the bathroom, close the door, look in the mirror and say, what am I going to do about this? Because I've got to come up with some plan. What do you think? And the mad money. All right. Mad money. What did every mother tell her daughter? Make sure you're going out for a date. Do you have money in your pocketbook? How much you at least have to have $25 in case you need a cab. You know, um, all those things. I never went to bed angry because I always said to Harry, I'm like, Harry, if we have an argument, I will not go to bed angry because something could happen in the middle of the night and then I would never forgive myself the next day.
Mm.
So, little stupid things that, they're not stupid. They're not stupid. I would say to have these hard conversations with yourself, then once you past yourself, women are better at this than men. Men are very pragmatic, women are more emotional. So have these hard emotional conversations with yourself. If you're a man, men are generally pragmatic, but they're not thinking about their emotions. So I would tell men, you know, put a dipstick in those emotions and see what you come up with. If you're on low, think about it because you're going to be having emotions that you never planned on having. And that's going to be tough. And men don't cry. Men don't go to other people for help. So you're going to have to come up with some sort of a support and maybe say to yourself, like my friend, he went to a widow support group. Do something like that if you're a man.
Oh, so I'm gonna use this as a plug. We have a men's only grief support group that
Yeah.
we host on the second Thursday of the month from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern time. And exactly the points that you made, we identified that men need a safe space to be vulnerable, to be transparent, in with only other men. There's a different camaraderie, there's a different communication style, there are differences that they need in that privacy. We do have a open mixed group the last Thursday of the month, men, women, depending on what that is, but we saw the need to make sure that we're providing a space. And the gentleman that hosts that support group lost his wife in 2017, unfortunately, after she gave birth to their third child, and the child did pass. And I share that to say that the person that is managing and leading that group is someone that has traveled that road. So if you are a man or if you know a man that is struggling and needing a safe space, you can go to our website, widowhoodrealtalkwithtina.org. You can find the Zoom, the information to participate in that men only grief support group because that community, we do need that. And
Yes.
something else you mentioned about the different types of friends we have in our life. Some friends seem well when we are married, some friends don't carry over into this new life that we have. But I want to encourage you because I know I'm a bit of a unicorn. all of my married friends, we have remained in relationship and has stayed intact. When Mark died, they leaned in and said, I'm here. Don't discount me. When I left Pennsylvania and relocated back here to Virginia, I was trying to figure out how do I create this new friend group because my married friends, I made the assumption they didn't want to have anything else to do with me because I'm now this widow and I'm now looking like what nobody wants to have happen to them. And so I started trying to connect with single people, not dating, but just a book club or different meetup things like that. And my married friends came to my house and like, what are you doing? We are here. You don't get to make that decision for us. And I say that to say it may happen, but there's a possibility that it doesn't happen. And to give your friends space to be able to show up and to love on you and to support you and continue down this version of life that you have.
Another thing along those lines that comes to mind is that many of the friends that were Harry's friends, they're grieving. And when they see me without Harry, and they see without Harry, and then they grieve again. So some people that you think um, don't hang around you anymore because they were never your friends or they were never Harry's friends. Be a little thoughtful about those people because they may not be able to manage the grief. And I know I see it in my nephew's eyes, and I see it in a few of Harry's friends' eyes that they may not be able to put it back together again, that they're still grieving.
That
When
is
they
an
see
excellent
me,
point. Yes.
I represent their loss.
Yes.
And they're having their own emotions. They're going through their own things. I have no idea what they're going through. It's difficult for me. I have not been able to come up with, oh, this is how this is going to be. Because every time I see them, I still see their grief. It's changing a little bit, but I don't know how to make them feel good.
I think that is the trick or the oddity of it. There's no fix. There's no way to make it what it was again. I mean, I'm a huge proponent of people going to a therapist or having a grief coach or doing these things. But as I talk to people, well, how can you fix this? They're dead. We don't get that. The biggest, or maybe the fix would be you coming to acceptance that you had the gift of their life. And now, how do you continue making your own journey? How do you continue making your story? Because your journey has not ended. The time that you had with them, and how do we cement that relationship, enjoy the love we have, not turn it into a burden, regret, but take that love and bring it into the journey of we're living, which brings me to my question. What do you do to fulfill your days? Who is Joy now? What is your journey of life looking like? How are those pages being filled?
Because I was considering retirement or closing close to retirement. I decided last year to slow down and to take inventory of who I was now that it's been 2 years into Harry's passing, because it's clear that like I was talking about those 6 pages, and every time I turn, after the 6 page, it's blank, but those 6 pages keep on getting filled.
Yes.
Right. So I'm thinking, okay, let's take a look at those really, those brand new 6 pages, and what am I and what do I want to do and where do I want to go? And so I thought, I don't need to work like I had been working. So that brief moment of panic when I got laid off, that relief when I got that contract job, when that contract job let off this past July, there was another moment where I was like, oh my gosh, who am I? And I thought to myself, okay, who am I? I'm 67 years old. I'm a widow. I'm in knock knock, relative good health. I have a house. There's a certain amount of luck and planning and sense, and you know, I'm not running on empty. I'm not, it's not, I'm not Jeff Bezos, but I'm okay. So what do I want to do? And that's when I went into maybe page 7 and thought, outline, what do I want to do? Part of that was like, maybe I want to travel. Do I have every piece there? No. So what do I want to do now? And I thought there's a few things that I enjoy doing. And I had been uh, networking. And through the network, I began a mastermind. And it was a small mastermind. And I was dabbling with it and thinking, who am I? I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just Joy. But I'm like, you know what? Maybe just Joy can do this. So I led this mastermind for I believe, 4 cohorts. It's now in its 7th cohort. And I'm thinking, I'm just a facilitator. I'm just managing this for other women, another network of women to confidentially talk, network, connect, just a place, not a big, huge network where you don't get a chance to talk with people and the insurance person comes over to you and wants to sell you insurance, or a multi-level marketer wants to get you in their funnel. It's more of, what are you doing? What are you thinking? Where are you going? What problems do you have? Because they may be some of the problems that I've had. So it's a small network. So I decided to put more, last July, I decided I'm going to put more effort into the mastermind. And
Did you say the topic of the mastermind? You mentioned it, but what is it about?
it's for women, and it's business based, but it's business lifestyle. And the mastermind is built on, because I am I am marketer, so all the women are email marketers and women. But that's not the purpose of the mastermind. That's the common denominator, so that we're all, at least we all have one common thing amongst us. We may come from different places. We may, be at different stages of our career. We may have families. We may be older, younger, but we're all email marketers. And so that is something that I do. And each time I do it, it grows. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna focus on that. And I've been doing a podcast. And the podcast has also grown. So the first year I did it, it was about email marketing. And then the second year it was about digital marketing. And now it's just about people. And how it is a digital cafe, but Tina, who do you know that doesn't have something to do with digital? Something. Like,
Girl, my 80-year-old mom has a podcast. I can't
that's what I'm
even.
saying. Exactly. So I'd say that we all touch the digital world in some way, whereby anybody can be on my show. And I just like to talk to them about their specialty, what they can provide, and share with other people, figuring if it touches one person, then I've, done a good deed for the day.
What
So
is the title of your mastermind class? What is the title of your podcast?
So the podcast is called Email and Coffee, a digital cafe with Joy Brooks. So you could look for it, Email and Coffee with Joy Brooks. The women's group is Women in Email Marketing Mastermind. So WIEMM. And I'm focusing on that. I still do email marketing, so I still have 5 clients in email marketing, and they float my boat. I call them my cash cows. So that's the money that's coming in. Um, and because I've retired, there's that money as well. I'm not looking to make a lot of money. I'm looking to just break even and to make what's the word I'm looking for? Pay it forward. I'm looking to make people. I'm looking to connect because it's something that I took for granted, and no one should take it for granted. No one should take it for granted. It's we all do, we take for granted that we have kids, we take for granted that we have mothers, we have husbands, we have lots of things. We take it for granted because that we all learned during COVID that could be taken away from you,
Yes.
or it could be in such a way a fear to connect with people. Oh, I'm going to get sick if I touch them. Now I can only talk to them on the phone. I mean, and those relationships were the only things that held us all together.
Yes.
It
Yes.
wasn't anything else. I mean, we didn't have toilet paper, but we connected on Zoom, and those things made us sane.
Yes.
So,
Many people didn't, you weren't connecting, and that became a very big way to interact with people. So the
yeah,
timing of your podcast was really relevant.
right, right. And I say that connecting with people and learning how to connect with people, connecting with different people, creating new networks for yourself. So, what I tell many people who get into the cancel concept, and on the internet, I tell people all the time, listen, if you're feeling that there's such a big problem and that there's people out there to hate, take that hate, turn it into a volunteer, and go volunteer.
Be the
So
solution to the problem you've
yeah,
identified.
become
Yes.
part of become part of the solution. Forget about the people that you hate because they hate these, they hate whatever concept that is your passion project. Let it be a passion project, and totally connect with the passion project. Now, I'm not saying to become an activist and go burn somebody's house down. I'm saying if you feel strongly about a group of people that need help, then reach out and try and help them. Find some sort of a network that helps those people and help them. Be there for them.
Just like
But
I'm doing with the widowhood. I've
exactly.
identified we our experiences can be utilized beyond what we felt. We've identified something that's difficult, something that's hard, then be there for someone. You've identified that there's a lot of people who don't have food. Set up where you provide lunch
Right.
once a month. It doesn't have to be world changing, but we each one show up in a way in someone else's life is impactful,
It is.
because we can spend a lot of time complaining, a lot of times putting our voice on something, but unless we put action to it, it's just a lot of hot air.
That's right. And there are lots of communities out there. Even if you're not a religious person, a lot of the non-secular community is set up to do volunteer work. So, I'm sure that if you went down to a local church and said, listen, this is not my denomination, maybe I'm an atheist, whatever, but do you have a food kitchen? Do you, do you have local drives where, I can help? What can I do to help the
Yes.
community? Um, just start at the community level. If you don't have a passion project, if you're just like, you say to yourself, I'm just, going along in life, but, sometimes I don't know what to do with myself. Volunteer. It's very important. And if you don't, what I did was I created I created my own volunteer community.
Nice.
So you may, I started the mastermind and I put it together whereby I'm not the person necessarily that's giving all the advice, that it's the group of women that are advising the group of women.
You put
And
them
no one has
together.
a degree. No one's a psychologist. We're just people. We're that friend group that has a certain amount of experience um, that can help other people. And we're all different. So we're we're inserting perhaps a completely different worldview that suddenly you're thinking, oh wow, well, those people aren't so bad. Wow, I met that, and you're now exposing yourself. One of the things that I do in the women's group is it's international, and I do it purposefully because one of the things that American workers are having a problem with is, you know, having their job outsourced and now hating groups of people because those people are taking my jobs. Well, you know what? Those people need to work too. And those people have families. And and now we're taking the those out of those, and it's just people.
Yes.
And it's important because the world is not going to shrink, and we're going to have lots of grief scenarios: losing a job,
Yes.
losing a loved one, losing a friend.
Health,
Yeah,
miscarriage, a pet dying, having to relocate, financial. And I'm glad you mentioned that. Grief is so many, it shows, we may call it mental health or other different phrases we have, but there's something that we're no longer with that expectation of being able to receive, and we're going out, we are grieving the loss of that item. What I
right,
found is it's usually the death of a loved one that becomes a thing that you realize it's more than you can handle on your
right.
own. You
That's
may
right.
have, okay, I got to relocate, I lost a job, I'm going to do this. Okay, my health is not bad, I'm going to eat right, exercise, I'm going to do this. And we learn to push our way through those different griefs. But then when someone we love dies, it's like the straw that broke the camel back, that
Right,
we are no longer able to handle all those. Now I'm at rock bottom, and
right.
I don't know what to do with.
But the one of the things that I do, it's sort of like a hack for people, is that we have all lost lots of things.
Yes.
And therefore, we have crawled out of the hole, maybe little holes, but tap into that strength to know, I have been here before. Okay, I lost my husband. I've never lost a husband before, but, you know, I lost my mom. I lost my dad. So, I know what to expect. People that haven't lost loved ones, when they start to get to a certain point in their life, the old saying that you get to a certain age and everyone's dying, right? Everyone's dying around you. It's true. It's also true that you're also having babies all over the place. So you
Yes.
get to a certain part in your life where everybody you know is having babies, and the rest of the people are all dying. The truth is, tap into that.
Yes.
Use the babies that, now you're a grandmother. Okay, you just lost your husband, and you could say, "Oh, well, my grandchild's never going to see her granddad." You could do that, but also say, "But this the miracle of this child. Now I'm going to be able to give it." You have to use all of those experiences to drag you out of the hole, to tell you, I do have some experience here. There's a certain amount of, I haven't a clue what I'm going to do, but I do have a certain amount of experience. And it's okay if I act like I know what I'm doing, at the same time exposing myself to being vulnerable. So no, no, I don't have lots of friends anymore, and I'm not going out with my husband, to dinner, and I am home and I don't have a big social life, but I accepted some people back into my life. I have a few friends, and I'm building on that moving forward. So
Yes.
let them back in, let new people in, build something moving forward using the experience of your life. What did you used to like to do before it all happened? I used to like to, okay, so I used to like to read, and I always read with Harry. Now I read 3 books at a time. Okay, obviously I have more time on my hands. I read a
Yeah.
lot. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not something I share with other people. Although, with the women's group, one of the things that I do is say, would you like to read a book together? So if you do like to read, then you can consider a library group where you read a book together. It's really that simple. There are lots of things you could do. It becomes a little odd. Library is a good place to go find resources, not just books, but community resources. Most of the time, the community library does a lot of things.
Yes, I found that myself. This has been a really good conversation, as I knew it would. I've asked you a lot of questions. Any questions of me, Joy?
No, when is that group? I think I might want to take a look at your mixed group.
It is the last Thursday of the month from 6 to 7 Eastern Time, PM.
And it's online, right?
Yep, it's on Zoom. If
I'm
you
gonna
go to, okay, I'll send you, it's on our website. I think I have it. I think you and I connect mostly on LinkedIn.
Yes.
I'll try to make sure that I place it as an event there, but the open group is the last Thursday, 6 to 7. I try to allow it to be an open conversation, sort of ebb and flow, but I do usually, because I'm a project manager, I'll have a couple of things to cover to spark conversation. But it's a really good thing to just know that I'm going to meet up with some other people that get me, and to be in a safe space. And we're not, some days we may talk about grief, other days it may just be weather, life, da 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 da, and just to be able to have a safe space to be. So,
Mhm.
yes, I would enjoy you joining us. Absolutely.
I really think that's the most important thing for people at any stage of their life is always to reach out. And when we're young and we're in high school, the opportunity to make friends is is plentiful.
Yeah, we've never been hurt. We're so naive. We just, hi, my name is such and such. Now as adults, we start thinking of all the rejection, all these other different things. What if they don't like me? And then we shy away, and we need it more
Or
in this season of our life.
and not
We
only
have
that,
so much more to share
but
and to
it's a
help
different
other
type of
people.
friendship. It's a different,
Yes.
it's not just, oh, I go to the movies with her, or we color together, or we laugh a lot. We talk on the phone about nonsense. It's the friendship becomes, it's so mature. I mean, it's the same thing as a marriage, right? When you're married to somebody for a number of years, you first meet them, you're so excited when you see them. You're going to go out for dinner, you're going to jump into bed with them. You're going to have a great sex life. You have all these great things that are going on. 10 years down, you got kids. The whole thing changes. 10 years from that, the kids are older. Now you're, looking at each other going, that person's got no hair, or that person has hair all over their face. It's
And
everything.
an extra 30 pounds.
Exactly. So it's like the concept of friendship changes. And that's yet another thing. Go in the mirror with the bathroom door closed and say, what is a friend? What do I want out of a friend? And am I a friend? What do I give as a friend? Um, Friendship is very important. And that your husband or wife, loved one, whatever, is your best friend, that's more than you could possibly imagine. And Harry was my
Indeed.
best friend.
Hmm. I have two questions for you.
Hmm.
Two final questions, I'll say. One, what gives joy, Joi, joy, Joy?
Um, because I wasn't able to have kids. And I've always been a dog lover. I've always had dogs. Now, if I had kids at some point in time, I would be talking about my kids and my grandkids. But I'm talking about my dogs. So my dogs give me a reason to go walk every day, twice a day, to get out. Um, we have, yes, they're dogs. I'm not pretending that they're human beings. I don't dress them up in clothes. No, we go out, they walk their dogs. I'm a human being. but we're integrating ourselves into this bigger world on a number of different levels. And I'm very aware of that level, and I'm very appreciative of that level, because it makes me realize that there's bigger things than just me, myself, and I. And that level is dimensional. So it really does bring in um, the maker, the creator, because they have a creator too.
Mm.
So I realized, ooh, there's a big picture here, real big, and there's a big mystery because I can't communicate with that, and I can't communicate with that, but I do the best I can.
Okay.
So that sort of grounds me in a very odd way. So they're my joy. So that's the answer to that question.
Second question. If you could pick any season, age in your life, what would you pick and what would you tell yourself?
Oh, wow. I'm very comfortable right here. And I don't know if that's a cop out.
Sort of, but okay.
Okay. So I would go back to my teenager youth, and I would go back and I would say, slow down, be more mindful. And all the questions, some of them are going to have the big answers, some are going to have little answers, and some are going to have no answers. And that's the way it will always be.
Thank you for not copying it.
But I don't have any regrets.
No, no, not about regrets, but just things we've learned. Thank you for this conversation. I will let you end this out with anything maybe you wanted to talk about we didn't cover, or just say how you want to close this conversation.
It's an overused expression, but being grateful really is a lifesaver when you're down and out. I can start singing a song. Being grateful, remembering what you're grateful for, and there's no way in life that you could say you're not grateful for something. It may just be, I'm really grateful for the glass of water right now. Just try to find that one thing that you're grateful for, and then the next thing and the next thing. And with along the lines of that word grateful, grace. Going through life with a little bit of grace, it sort of aligns with compassion, where things may not be right. Things are definitely not perfect. The world may be a lot of conflict, but I do believe we're here to fix it. And that's all that we could do. Just fix it a little bit at a time.
Joy Brooks, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Hello, Widowhood. I told you that conversation with Joy would be worth your time. I enjoy the opportunity to be able to be in the space with her and just have a candid conversation. She doesn't hold back anything. She was willing to share so many different intimate details and so many tips that I think that you will find helpful in your journey of widowhood. We are on this journey with you. Be encouraged and let me know what you think of some of those 12-step efforts. And if you're interested in joining any of our support groups, please go to our website. Thank you for being here with us and have a good day.
Thank you for spending another episode with Widowhood Real Talk. If you found the contents of today helpful, share the episode to anyone you know who may need it. Subscribe to the show and tune into Widowhood Real Talk each week. Then visit widowhood-realtalkwithtina.org to join the community and access additional resources. Remember, you are not alone in this journey.